everybody. Right, this is another session of Thriving Thursday, and it's a peculiar one, like we always do when we have guests with us. And I'm delighted. You can see that I'm delighted. Yeah, I see FolaFayo is already on Facebook with us. I'm delighted to definitely host today Fisayo Fadeyi. I can't wait for the gist he has for us. We've been touching a little bit on it just before we went live. Deputy class governor. We know how we roll. Yeah, so but it's good to be back, and it's definitely good to have a guest with us today. Like you all know how we run Thriving Stories. We basically have a guest who's going to be sharing their story to thriving. It could be something around the transformation. It could be something around the transition. But basically, we ensure that you're picking up gems that will also help you to thrive better in your own space. So I'm very delighted to have with us today a trade finance specialist, Fisayo Fadeyi, who is currently based in the UK. And he has some gist for us. Don't worry, but I'm going to help you guys to unpack that gist. And for those who might be joining us for the first time, this is Thriving. This is a peculiar type of Thriving Thursday, where we have sessions like this with a faculty member or a guest, and we're looking into ideas, concepts, and tips that can help people to stay, in the thriving space in any, area of their life that they really want to focus on. And today we have a guest with us, and he's going to introduce himself, don't worry. And for those who might be meeting me for the first time, I am FolaFayo, the Perception Shaper. And what I do is to support anyone who is transitioning, anyone who is intentional, let me emphasize that, who is transitioning to the next level in any area of their life, or into any space or any season, to be able to do so using the Thriving Code. I've mentioned the Thriving Code a lot of times, and I'm doing it again today. If you do not have your own access to the Thriving Code, you need to go to thepolishlens.com. It is free, and it is ready for you to download and get every information, idea you can use anytime, over and over again, to thrive and to transition with ease. All right, so let's go to the gist for today, because when I start going on like that, sometimes I eat into the gist of the guest, and I don't want to happen. I want Fisayo to unpack for us today. So Fisayo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's good to have you here. All right. So I didn't get the pleasure or the privilege of introducing you, because whenever we ask our guests to introduce themselves, we always ask them to do so, mentioning some things that just those who are close to them would know. All right. So please, let's know much about you today, as much as we can divulge. Please, let's meet you today.
Okay, my name is Fisayo. I work in the finance industry, more like banking industry. I've worked in the banking industry all my life. I'm currently a trade finance specialist. I'm based in the United Kingdom. I'm married. I'm married to Temitope. I have a son who is a newer version of me. And yeah, I like watching movies. I love movies. And one of the things that I do that you might not know is I like gari and granite with powdered milk. Ooh. I think I picked that up when I was in a boarding house, Mm-hmm. I think I didn't get to do it the way I wanted to do it. So right now I can buy gari as much, I can buy granite as much as I want. I can buy powdered milk. So I still have it at night before I go to bed often. I have a good sense of humor. Amongst my friends, I think I'm the one who makes people laugh. I used to pick on people. I think growing up, my teenagers, I went to boarding house. I think that really shaped me. I think that's the best experience I had in my secondary school days. I went to boarding house. I was quite small amongst my friends, so I can't really fight to defend myself physically, but I can use my mouth. So, I hope I've said enough.
Yeah. That is interesting. I like the fact that you are able to share openly the fact that you like to snack. Let me use the word snack, because it's not a full meal, right? It's not a full meal.
It's not. It's usually after I've had my meal, proper dinner.
Oh, so that's like your dessert. That's your dessert and snack at the same time.
Yeah, just when I'm about to sleep. Or if you come the next morning, there'll be a bowl, empty bowl, just on
wow. We definitely have something. That's so cool. We have something in common. I've kind of maybe I've gone a little bit rusty adding milk to mine. I know that there was a time I used to put milk, but I'm still very much a fan of Gary granules and of course ice water with ice cubes in it, right? So that's the way I like
ice cube, yeah.
Yes, ice cubes in it. Awesome. Awesome. I like that. And I like the fact that you also were able to recognize that amongst your friends, in stature, you probably were not out there, but you were using your mouth very well because you just have to have a coping strategy when you're growing up, right? You have to have a coping strategy, a survival tactic, something that you always put forward with. Okay, so while we are talking about that coping strategy, let me not box you into that as the only thing that might have happened while you're growing up. Let's hear a little bit more about your growing up. What time would you say was the most interesting phase, and what made it so for you?
I would say it was my teenage years, because at that time I went to boarding house, like I said, and I was all by myself. There was no laptop, there was no mobile phone. They just drop you off at boarding house and that's it until visiting day. That's about another 1 month. So you just have to sort yourself out, And so right from my very first day at school, I had to make friends. I had to find the seniors who would look after me, or who I would use their names to protect, that kind of stuff. So
I remember. Yeah.
it was for me, I think it was those years, it's a period I want to remember, that I will always remember, because that's where I became aware of myself. I learned stuff. I was a teenager. I tried things out. I failed in some aspects, so many things, and I think, and that's why I still made a lot of friends, in my secondary school days, and I still have them as friends. And it was just my university days was not as cool as my secondary school,
right? Yeah,
I did a lot of sports then, so it was really fun.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so cool. I know that now that you're saying it, I think why many people might pick except for those who were probably day students who now stayed on campus in the university. I think for a lot of us who were boarders, that might have been the most interesting part of growing up for us, because that was when you were first out of the house, meeting people from other states in Nigeria, for those that schooled in Nigeria, right? And so you're mixing with people who are different from your family members, and you are discovering yourself. Like you said, you became a bit more self-aware, and I like that. Okay, so if you look at the fact that you were mostly in school being a boarder, who were the strongest influences for you while you were a boarder, and who was maybe on regular holiday time for you?
I would say my sister, because my sister was already in school. She was 3 years ahead of me. So she'd already told everyone that I was coming. And so when I came into school, your names would be on everything. So when people see my last name, the boys probably, are you this person's sister? I say, are you this person's brother? I would say yes. So the people who were trying to get close to my sister, they're nice to me. They became nice to me, So and my sister's friend, I had so many school mothers, and so it because she was in school before me, that kind of set the pace for me when I came in. I had it kind of soft landing, not like all the other students have. Wow. Some of my sister friends will come to me and ask me to give them my dirty clothes so they can wash it for me. That was how he was. There was one incident, I forgot, I put my underwear in it and she washed it and spread it. I was very in the girls' hostel, and it was so funny. I was just in GS1, so
oh wow!
I do know better. Wow. Yeah, but that's just it was really fun for me. All of these things.
Lovely. Okay, but at home, apart from, was she also a strong voice of influence for you at home, or just in the school?
Yeah, because we were friends. We are still friends. We still talk a lot. if I don't have enough time to talk to her, I don't call her, because I know if I call her, we're going to stay hours on the phone. I just send her a voice note like, hi, how you doing? I'm about to sleep. I just want to say hello. I don't want to call you, because I know if I call her, we're going to talk, and then I'll end up sleeping late. So yeah, because she was my older sister, 3 years. I didn't want to let her boss me around. So we fight a lot, when we're sharing things. And my mom would say, because she's older than me, she should pick first, that thing, and I always like, why should she pick first? Or she would pick the biggest, so we used to get into that fight growing up. And she used to defend me when I'm doing stuff, when I'm out of the house, coming back late. Then, like I said, my teenagers, I became aware of myself. I started listening to music and all that stuff. So she was the one that could really relate to me then. And so, yeah.
That was a powerful nugget to just drop there right now, because, when you said she was a strong voice of influence for you in school, what was coming to my mind was, how important it is for us to have someone representing us, who was going ahead of us. Because that definitely helped you. You were not afraid, because your mind, you're like, well, your sister will definitely sort out those things, right? If anything, you know who to ask questions. That's it. When you were transitioning to that big phase, you were not so, of course, you probably would have had some concerns, but in your mind, you're like, I have someone to ask. If I'm not clear about something, I have someone to ask. And then you had them looking out for you. So you didn't just know you could lean on them. You actually had the experience of them looking out for you. And that is fantastic, because I can bet that there were people who came in who didn't have the kind of connections you had, and they will have a different story about boarding house in your own set.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. But sometimes when you hear boarding house stories, and you'll be like, were we in the same school at all? Were we in the same school at all? That's not my experience.
There were people who left midway who couldn't handle it. There were people who left midway.
Yeah. So I like the fact, because that was what was coming to my mind when you were talking about that. Because I didn't have my older sister in my own school, right? She was in another school, right? So I basically went into the schools trying to also connect and look for who would look out for me, whose names I could use. And so I totally understand that. But I also like the fact that you said something that, yes, she was not just a voice of influence in school, but out of school, because she could relate with you. And I just think about it in life today, and I'm like, for those who will be listening in and those who will be watching this, when you're going into a new space, sometimes we have a lot of information that makes it easy for us to go in there. But who are the people that you have that have gone ahead of you? And you were saying something about, she was just 3 years in quotes older than you, and you didn't want her bossing you. Because that's usually what we tell people, that don't necessarily look for someone who will be miles ahead of you. If the person is a step, 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of you, they qualify.
Yeah.
Because they relate better with you. So if you're looking for someone who will support you on a journey to change, because a lot of people are always looking for the big names. Oh, I want maybe one senior in SS3. Yeah, in GS1, you want one senior in SS3. The person will soon go anyway. So the person can't do much for you. The person probably sitting for the exams. So I really like that, and I'm emphasizing that. Because even for me, as I'm saying it, I'm telling myself, FolaFayo, usually when you're going into a new space, you need to have someone that will be your senior or older sibling in that space to relate with you and to be able to put you through. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So let's go on to some of the things we want to hear from you today. Now, when we have guests like you come to share with us, we're looking usually at 2 major types of stories, like transformation or transition. And from the conversation that I've had with you before, I believe very much that you've had a very key transition that would be relevant for some people who are doing the same today. But I will start here first. If you are going to describe or explain what thriving is with respect to transition, based on the transition you have had, right? How would you describe thriving?
Wow. Thriving for me, it's a big word, and I think you will be able to best describe thriving when you look at the space that you are at a point in time. For me, when I was making that transition, thriving for me will be completing that process and settling in the space or in the place that I'm going to, and having, no no worries, no concern, of being fully settled about your residential status, about your financial status. That for me would be thriving, And when I did get that, I excelled, because then, I would say I thrived. And then I moved to another stage in my life. But if I want to describe it generally, I would say thriving is a place where you are happy and satisfied with yourself, that you are able to express and use, whatever gift or whatever skill that you're naturally blessed with, that you're expressing, you're using that gift effortlessly. And obviously there is a reward for that. Then for me, that's thriving, because you're satisfied, you're not struggling. The gift in you, the skills in you, naturally you are using them and maybe blessing lives, or creating content for which is also supporting you financially. So there's no struggle there. It's just happening effortlessly. For me, that's thriving.
Awesome, beautiful. I like that. I like the fact you said something that I'm hearing for the first time since I started asking guests about thriving, though. When you said it's about completing the process. I mean, I would not even have thought about that. That's why I always like, an opportunity like this where you really brainstorm and mastermind with other people, because you're seeing perspectives that you're like, I wasn't even thinking about that. Because, in the space of transitioning, there is an end point. Now, what happens a lot of times when people are transitioning is because it overlaps with a lot of other things. So they cannot really quite see the end process of their transition, because they did not even know that this is the point where I would say that this transition has ended. But for you, you've clearly said if you can complete that process, and say, okay, now I have my residence in place. Now I have some finance working properly for me. Then I know that I am in a place of thriving. So anyone who might be looking or in the process at the moment of, settling into a new city or a new country, I don't know what you have defined as the conclusion of your journey, of your process, but you might want to start identifying that, because that's really very key. Because sometimes why we get to be frustrated or maybe discontent is, there's an end in our subconscious, and we're struggling to catch it, and we are trying to pull forward at the same time. But what you're saying is so profound, because it's like saying that, look, for you identified, maybe it was in retrospect, I don't know, or maybe it was before you even entered the process. But for you, you were like, if I can only achieve these two things. And you know what I always tell people too, when you're going about goals and dreams, the fewer the things you want to achieve, the better for you, because then you can focus, and then you can probably put in more energy into those things. So for anyone who's in a transition today, Fisayo has dropped another gem. What would you describe your end of process as? What things would classify or qualify your process as, okay, well, I've basically gotten to the end? And at what point will you be able to say you scored yourself close to 90, 80% of that conclusion? Because it will give you a sense of thriving. And of course, you said something about being in a space generally where you are, I like to use the word express, because expression is one of the things that is in the acronym for CEDA, because it's something that I've been focusing on a lot of late. And I have been seeing it more as something that a lot of people are not connecting with. And with this midlife age that many of us are in, between 35 and 50 for a lot of people, many people are feeling a bit of disconnect. They are actively doing work. They are taking action every day on some things, but there's no place for really expressing. And then what makes it really delicious when you're expressing is when you're being paid. So you nailed it there when you said, you're not just expressing that gift, you're now being paid for expressing that gift. So that is a fantastic place to be. So I really love that. And I hope that, a lot of people who are here or listening in or watching the replay, and if you're watching the replay, please give us #replay, would also start asking themselves, have I really started to express? Because expression, it's one of the key things in the thriving formula, where we say for your outflow, you need to have something that you're doing, because we all have a deposit of incredible gifts on our inside. Maybe some of them have not been discovered, maybe some of them have not been developed, but we have them there. And you know how it is when you have something that is boiling, after a while it's going to blow out of that place, right? Because you never really channeled it properly. So are you channeling that inner gem? And I thank you, Fisayo, for dropping that. All right. So back to this transition gist. Okay. So we know that Japa is a word that is popular in Nigeria today.
Japa.
I'm telling you, it's a word that is popular right now. And while I don't think it's a new thing, because I feel in every country, yeah, you're right. In every country, you will find a lot of people moving across. Immigration. I remember with the first time we did this thing in primary school, I didn't understand what they were teaching me. I was like, what is this teacher talking about? It's not for you. Why would you go to another country? And that's what I used to think then when I was a kid. I was like, it's not just to go for holiday and come back. I didn't understand why people were
I know.
going to other countries. I didn't get it, right? But growing up and seeing peers who were already going from secondary school to have college degrees from other countries, that started opening my mind. So I know that from our sets from secondary school, many of them are already leaving. So I know that it was really like that. And just a few came back home to work or to start stuff and all of that. But things are not looking as rosy for, the populace like they should be. So a lot of people are looking for options outside the country. If I can give my best environment that will reward me, why not go there? So I know that that's the essence of that relocation thing. So I know you took this choice years ago. What helped you make that decision?
What helped me? Or what influenced that decision? I think at a point, I was working in the banking industry in Nigeria. My first job was in Ado-Ekiti. I was living in Songwater. I grew up in Lagos, First Dark, and then we moved to Songwater. And then from there, I got the job in Ado-Ekiti. It was my first job in the banking industry. I was happy. So I had to move to Ado-Ekiti. Ado-Ekiti is more like not like Lagos. It's not like in like a town like Lagos. So I went there, and obviously my desire was just spend some years there and move away and get another job. So I think I spent 2.5 years there. Got another job in Lagos, the banking industry also. It was on the island. I was living on the mainland. And then I started that rat race. So it was 20 hours, I leave the house at 5:30 a.m. I'm back at 11, 12 midnight. And, I kept doing that Monday to Friday. Saturday, I'm at work. Sunday, I'm at work. I couldn't even go to a church service of 9 to 12. I chose a church that has 4 services so that I could make the 7 to 8:30 one and then still go to work on Sunday. So I was doing that. And at some point, I started asking myself, there has to be more to life. It can't be this. And for me, I think I have foresight. So when I look at stuff or when I'm doing stuff, I kind of like start looking at 5 years. So at that point, I was like, 5 years time, I'm going to have kids. Am I going to be doing this? And that thought coincided with me. I can't do this, And then I started to feel uncomfortable. I started to feel dissatisfied. I started to feel there has to be more to life. There has to be more to me, all that stuff. And it so drives me that I started looking for ways. Initially, I thought the way out was get another job in another banking industry. But after I thought, it's not it. Then I thought, okay, let me go do masters. I was looking at Lagos Business School, was it?
Lagos,
because I thought, that's a prestigious school. And I thought it's still going to be the same space. How am I even sure my work would even allow me to get the best of the course of the master's degree in Lagos?
Yeah.
So then the idea of traveling out of the country, I had a friend in England, so the idea started crossing my mind. Prior to that time, if you ask me, I'd never thought that I was going to travel out. I had told myself that I will make it in this country and I'll be so successful more than those who are out of the country, And even if I'm going to travel out, England was not it for me. But I thought they're too noble. They follow rules. I'll probably go to America if I thought I'm going to travel out. But at that point in my life, all of these thoughts, were coming to me. So I thought, then at some point, I thought about environment. I said to myself, does your environment influence you? Because I'm here, is this the best of life? Do I need to go out? And I think I read somewhere about there's something in philosophy that you really can't see yourself except you step out and look at yourself. So this is what I know all my life. Is it the same thing that happens in other countries? If I meet Chinese or Japanese, what is their like? All those thoughts started coming to my mind. And I said, you know what? I'm going. Then I started to put money together. It was a project. So it took me about 3.5 or 4 years. So what I did, I didn't rent any house. I was staying with my friend. So so when I moved from Adirikiti to Lagos, because my parents were in Malta, so I couldn't stay and working in Lagos. So I just called up my friend and I said, okay, can I stay with you for a while? That a while, down to 3.5 or 4 years. So I stayed with them and they didn't chase me. So I was just like, I call his mom, my second mom. I was just like, his son. So I stayed there and I was able to save. I'm not sure, but I would say I was saving 70% or maybe 75% of my salary. So I put that together for 3.5, 4 years. My mom wanted me to get a house because she wanted me to get a house in Lagos so that my brothers could come and stay with me. They were like, I said, Mommy, I'm saving my money. So I did all that, for 4 years and all that. So even then, the money wasn't up to what I was targeting, because I always look at the university, top 20 university, and I always want to go to those top 20 university. So I was putting all those funds together, applying. There was internet was not common then.
Yes, I know.
Exactly. So it used to be even if I didn't have time for so even if you're gonna get it, it's like dongle.
Exactly.
Like you hang it on your laptop.
Yeah,
exactly.
You'll be signing in.
Exactly. So imagine when I get back home at probably 11:30 p.m. or thereabout, I would now sit down and start looking for. So I'm going to bed like 2. I'm getting up again at 4:35. That was it. So, but I think it was a desire to change, because I feel like this can't be the old, because I was always at work. I didn't know anything anymore. I didn't even know current affairs, what was happening all around me, which I used to know, which I used to find interest in, or I was being choked.
Wow.
So that drove me, and I started, all these plans. And when you have a strong desire, for that desire was so crazy. At a point, I went to my dad. I said I needed his house. I wanted to use his house as collateral to go and get. I wanted to get out.
Wow.
You know that Andrew no checkout. That Andrew that checked out. My desire was like times 10 of that, Andrew. I just have to get out.
Yeah.
So that was it. It drove me. I was able to put the money together, plus planning, plus talking to everybody. I was calling people in England. I was checking schools. I checked America. America's masters was like 2 years. I didn't want 2 years. England was 1 year. Canada was cool for me. So that's why I settled with England. I called my friend. in India. He checked schools for. It was very supportive. I'm sure he's the main reason I came to. No, I'm sure he is the main reason I came to England, and that's another gist on its own. To have someone, one person that you can trust, that you can stake your life on.
Yeah, fantastic.
I don't know how much you want me to say.
Wow. That is incredible. That is incredible. And there's so much you've dropped. I was just telling myself now that where in the world did I put my pen? Usually I have my pen here writing away. So I don't have a pen. I'm trying to put in my head every single gem you're dropping so that I don't miss emphasis, right? But there were some things that you mentioned that, I'm like, this is big. This is big, right? One that I don't want to miss out is the fact that, this you said towards the end, but I feel was also probably happening at the beginning, right? When you said you liked current affairs, you liked the news, what was going on in town, what was going on in your environment, but you didn't even have time to stay updated. And that is usually a sign of knowing that you're due for change. Because when you start to disconnect from your core, then it's time for a change. So that plus, the stress in the living, the stressful living that you were having, were the pointers. So for me, I don't know. I'm not saying we all have to leave the country or we all have to leave our environment. But the truth is, a lot of us feel we're in a comfort zone, but these things are actually happening. We are no longer in touch with our core, right? And there's a lot of stress where we are. And the fear of the unknown seems to be bigger than that change. But that change might be what we need to look at, right? Like I said, it might not necessarily have to do with leaving the country. It might have to do with leaving your company. Because you need to start asking, at what point? Because a lot of people always ask, at what point do I leave? At what point do I disengage? But for that point for you, it was that clear. Right? And I really like that. Then you said something about your preparation period. You were intentional about your preparation. And I think the error that many might be falling into is this lack of preparation. Because we have had a lot of conversations, we have heard stories with a lot of people, and we feel like that's really what might be missing. Because a lot of people are like, okay, my friend went 2 weeks ago, I need to go a month after. It might not necessarily work that way. You said yours took years. And when I heard the percentage you said shared now of what you were saying, I'm like, what? Are people doing that to move? Almost 75% or 70% of what you were earning, you were putting aside, knowing you were going to do this. That was a huge investment. You were intentional about. That is just amazing. I mean, if nobody clapped for you, I'm sure your wife would have, but me. Enjoying to clap for you today, because that was incredible one. And just like what you said with the voice of influence earlier, you had someone ahead of you. You had someone on ground, and that connection was very helpful for you. Yeah, we're still going to come back to something like we feel you might want to draw for someone who's moving. But when we talk about change of environment, for a lot of people, they kind of wonder, oh, the lifestyle there is different from what I'm used to. It's not what I grew up with. What was your most shocking experience settling in? What was that thing that like hit you? What experience can you remember? They're like, FolaFayo, this one, I can never forget. It made me realize that I was not in Nigeria.
There is plenty if you want me to start. There's plenty.
Let's hear one tonight.
For me, when I was leaving, I left with an open mind. That I'm going there to see how they live and to learn. Because for me, I felt that like I was thinking about my environment, thinking about my change. When I applied to those schools, a lot of them will call you to interview you. So most of the times I was always taking the calls, if not most of the time, all the time, I was taking the calls in the toilet. So once it rings and I'm seeing it's a foreign number, and I go to the toilet. That's where I did all my interviews. So one of the questions I always ask is the makeup of the class. I'll ask them that the people in the class, where are they from? Because I don't want to go into a school where I won't have that connection with other people. I just want to change. Because I feel that if I come here 5 years or 10 years and go back, I can't go back with the same mentality. Because I felt that the mentality we had there was one of the things that was, destroying us. So I came to the UK with an open mind. And right from the time I touched down at the airport, the first thing I noticed, which I never thought of, was that it's a right-hand drive. I never knew. I never thought of it. Because when I came out of the airport, I looked at the cars, taxi, and like, obviously there were kids on the other side, like kids driving. Are these kids driving cars? And I was looking like this, and then my friend came, and he also got up on the other side, and I'm like, what's going on? So when I got to his car, so I saw it's right, so I told her, It's right hand. Like, yes, I never thought. How come I didn't know? And I said, okay, we used to watch American movies, so I never knew it was on the other side. So just out of the airport, that's the first thing. So many, so many things. The food, the milk there was no powdered milk. Even though now I can get it because I know African stores.
Exactly.
Is the liquid milk which I didn't like. So let me even tell you this experience. When I went into my first 2, 3, or 4 weeks, I was angry at the system in Nigeria when I went into school. When I looked at everything there, when I looked at the system, I was angry. I was a master's student, so I could always see the undergrad, when they finish their class, they'll come around, they gather around their equivalent of course advisor, and they will talk to him, he will tell them stuff. And I was just looking like this, my course advisor. I remember back then when I did a course GNS in 200 level, and I didn't see my results. So I wasn't sure whether I passed or not. But when I went to meet my course advisor, just check the sheet, like, you passed, go. So even though I didn't see my score, he told me I passed. So I believed it. But then a lot of my friends did not pass it. So in 400 level, second semester, I went to him and I didn't actually see my score in my eyes. Can you check, or should I just do it again? He just said, get out of my office, all that stuff. So because I wasn't sure, I did only the second semester, which was, I think, 70%. And can you believe it that GNS, they didn't find my exam script. So they put dash there, which was almost like 0.
Wow.
So because I did it in 400 level and I did just second semester, I scored maybe which was over 70, I had maybe 59 or something. That was the only reason I didn't have carryover.
Wow.
So when I saw those undergrad just with their course advisor, I remember that experience. And I was angry that look at these people. They have it was not a crowd, it was just, how will you not even thrive in this kind of environment? Yeah. So all of those things I saw when you step into the school, you can connect straight to the internet, you can so much repository, books, everything was just there. So my first 4 weeks, about my first 3 months, I was angry. When I get back home, I would complain to my friend. He would just be laughing at me. So that went through. And then when it was time for me to get a part-time job, my first interview was M&S. It was those December period when they take students, just so that they can manage the increase in demand.
Yeah.
I went for this interview for FolaFayo. It was a role play, so I would act as a sales representative. So a client would come in, and then he would want to buy. I would help them to buy stuff. I was so new, I was so new. Even the stuff that they are selling, I didn't know them. There were simple things like stick bread, like dip. I'm just fresh from Nigeria. What stick bread? Bread that I know is I get bread. Loaf of bread. I know loaf of bread. I don't know stick bread. Exactly. What's that? I don't know that. What's dip? Dip. I don't know dip. I know butter. I know jam. What's dip? Then there was one. This one. There was one onion. That's not the round onion. It's long.
Yeah.
I don't know what
spring onions.
Exactly. I don't know that. So the client came and walked towards me, said he wanted to buy stuff. He showed me the list. I look at the list. I look at the things where I can't even match the list to the thing. I didn't know those things. I flunked that interview. My friends were just laughing at me, when I got home. I didn't know deep, so they started showing me all those things. It was so funny, deep. I didn't know what that was. And I think another experience was when I was using the bus, and you went and you asked the driver that is this the last bus stop? And I'm like, what? because they don't, it's not a phrase that they use. They don't say last, but it doesn't understand what it was. I tried, trying to explain, express it. And we're like, oh, you mean where the bus terminates? I said, yes, where the bus terminates.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. So
a
many.
lot of those experiences.
I know. I know. This is incredible. I feel like someone who is able to compile all these stories would definitely sell books. And because you're a person with humor, you might probably want to consider that project, because this collection of stories, short stories, transition stories,
I know.
they are just something else. But that's quite interesting. But I like the fact that you were able to embrace the shock from the airport. I remember my first trip to the UK as well, and seeing that, and I was like, wow, this, but just lets us see that in a new space, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be geographical. In a new space, there will always be something that is new to us. If you start a new company, if you join the culture, there will be different. If you have a new boss, his style of stuff will be different. And the earlier we get used to the fact that as we move up, move out of spaces, of seasons, we need to just be ready for those shock moments. And the earlier we make a light fun or humor out of that, the better for us, because then we know that it's not anyone, because the reason why many people I know some of the things you mentioned that the store is selling today is because we have access to the DSTVs and cable networks, where we can see what's going on on Food Network, and you see all the chefs using all those things. So they might not be new if you now go to the place like that. But I think my challenge for anyone who is trying to make a change, you're going to a new company, how much information have you started looking out for? Because yes, you will still face a shock being there, right? But you can reduce the shock by how much exposure you put your mind to. You're going to a new location. It's not just what the friends you might have might also tell you. There might be other things that your friends haven't experienced that you will experience, but because you started reading books about it, checking it out on the internet, and it might not even be for people who want to stay permanently in the city. It may even be that you're going for a holiday, because I know that we did that. The last holiday we went to like 3 cities we've never been to in our lives, but you should have seen how we were Googling what we could Google before we went there, so that it would not catch us. You can even you can even do real life location 3D, and see how the place looks before you get there. So we have a lot of things in our favor. So thinking about that, right? I want to ask you a 2-in-1 question now, and that is, what would you do differently today if you were going to move, maybe out of the UK somewhere else, or maybe from the same Nigeria that you were years ago, to the UK? What would you do differently? And it might still be the same thing you would answer for your part B, is for someone, because there are a lot of people who want to move today, right? What would you tell that person? What key thing? Let's just make it 2 points. What 2 things would you tell people who are, planning a move? They probably have their tickets. They're going for school, or they're going for whatever, work or whatever, and they're about to move. What would your tips for transitioning geographically be for such people?
This question was really asked, but I've heard people who were coming and they really didn't have anyone here, that they know. They really didn't do a proper research. They really didn't prepare. For me, I think the desire to just come out, just get out was what I noticed. And for me, I always say that it's I don't want to say bad enough, but it's strange enough that you had to leave your country of birth at this age into another place, But then when you're coming here, it's an economy of its own. All the indices of economy is there. There are people who were born there, who grew up there. So all that is there. You don't just come in and expect that things would happen, or you really don't have a picture of what's going to happen, what it's going to look like, and you don't even have someone here who would guide you. All that is not in place. So for me, I would say most people coming into school, I would say be prepared financially. The last thing is you don't want to get here and be stranded. Nobody's going to help. You would not have cousins, uncle, whatever. So the few that I've spoken to, this is just from experience. They're coming in for school. They don't have the full tuition fees. They want to come in and work to get the tuition fee. It's not, I don't want to say it's not possible, but that's already
A challenge.
hard. Yeah, it's hard. Before I came, I because I was saving, I was able to pay up the full tuition fee. And that was a load off my mind. You are a student, you're gonna be studying. It's a master's. And in the UK, they don't even let you work full hours, it's just 20 hours a week. So for me, I think that needs to be considered. And the fully paying the tuition, I always recommend fully paid. Some have a way around it, but I would always recommend fully paid the tuition if you're coming here for masters. And I think if you know someone, that would be a plus. If you don't, you need to research. When I came, I didn't have all these things, but now you can. You can check the city. You can check the cost of living. You can check the cost of. You can check all these things and just prepare. Prepare financially, prepare mentally, and that's what I would say. But for students coming, I would always recommend tuition fees fully paid. And just be ready, because it's a big leap. There's so many things that you don't control, and there's so many things that the reality, when it dawns on you, it might make you go into depression. Because me, when I look back, I think I was depressed for a few times. No, but depression was a word we don't use then. Yeah. But now that I know the word better, I think I was, because in Nigeria, I was working, I was earning money, I was comfortable. But here as a student, I wasn't working. I wasn't earning that money. I couldn't do the things that I could do before. So sometimes when I wake up, I just be like, how did I even get here? What am I doing here? That kind of stuff. And my wife was in Nigeria, so it was just me. So good thing I was with my friends. He himself and his wife and his son. It was good for me, because when they notice that I'm quiet all day, they'll be like, what are you thinking? Because obviously I'm not that quiet person. So that was a support system there, all the same.
Yeah.
And having lived there for a few years, well, so many years, I can conclude that when you're coming into a different country, the people who received you into that country, they will have a lot of influence on the path that you will take in that country. They will shape it more. They will more or less shape that. So if I didn't come into this, and I have so many examples that I can say it's true. I can 95% say it's true. If I didn't come into the space of my friends, my path would have been different. Let me tell you one of my experiences, because I came in September, and September all through March. That I came in 2009. September all through the next September, October, November, I hadn't started working. Yeah. Some people who are coming, say they come, they start working. You don't control that. So you don't make concrete plans on that. Yeah. So I didn't work until about April, I think March, April, So at the point I was desperate. So I made copies of my CV, like handbills. I made a lot of it. My plan was, there's a shopping mall close to us. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into every single store in that shopping mall. And I'm going to be giving them like flyers, I was so as I was about to step out of the house, he saw me. And he was like, what am I holding? What's this plenty paper in my hand? So he grabbed them, like, it's very funny. And I'm sure if he's watching, he will just be laughing. He's just like, resume, like flyer. I printed so many. So like, where am I going? I said, I want to go and look for job. He was like, he said in Yoruba, but boy, my first straight are there. it was just like, oh, you'll be frustrated. Wait, at the end of it, you didn't get it, you know? So he said, calm down. You know, you all you need to worry about was transport fare. House was taken care of, food was taken care of, you fully paid your tuition. So all you need to do was transport fare and you still have enough money. It will come. Yeah. You know, so imagine the state of mind that I was. Even though I was comfortable. Yeah. Imagine the frame of mind I was compared to someone who is not that comfortable. You know, so it can have a damaging effect. Yeah. And there's so many people whose stories. So, for instance, if there are 10 people who moved, it's not all 10 people that have such story to tell. I don't have statistics, but there are people who don't have such story to tell. Sure. So for people coming, I would say be prepared financially. The advice I'm giving, if you're coming for you know, pay your tuition, find someone you know here, and if you don't know anybody, research where you're coming, and then be ready mentally. Yeah. You know, because it's different from everything is different. Food is different. Clothes it's gonna be shocking. You won't be able to wear shirts and whatever. You will wear jackets all the time. So all those things it's gonna change a lot. So you have to be prepared.
Wow.
That's what I was saying.
Wow, that is, I don't even know which one to pick in all of these things that you have just dropped now. I knew you were going to pack some things for us today, Fisayo. You know, I told you. But this is so good. This is so good. I really do agree with you that, you know, having someone who will be like a support system while you settle into a new space is always very, very key. Very, very good. But you said something. You said the people you first encounter, those who welcome you into a space, are the ones that will shape the space for you. You are so right. You are so right. You are so right. And I just want to challenge anyone who is just on the edge of stepping in. You're already like 1.5 steps into your new space, right? To say, you need to start asking those. I know that first of all, people will look at those that they know first, those that are closest to them. Because then some people will be saying, FolaFayo, what about if the people I know don't represent the future that I'm looking out for where I'm going? Because I think that might be the question, right? Yeah. So I know that they are the ones that will be saying things like your friend held you back and said, don't worry, we'll come. Some friends will say, let me help you go and share it.
Let me help you share it. You know, and it's a massive plus for me. Yeah. Because he said the things I face, you can't face it because I have faced it. I can't let you go and do it again.
Right. That's right.
You know, see, right.
Yeah, that's incredible. So we just need to start asking ourselves, you know, when we are getting ready for such a change, to say, what would thrive? I always tell people this. I mean, it's what I always put around this state around this thriving concept. You really need to know what thriving for you would be also as you go in, and now try to match the people that I know are ready to receive me into that space. Do they fit this picture? Now, if you know they don't, that means that you have to be a little bit more cautious with the counsel you receive from them. While they are giving you support, you can listen, because you don't want to also irritate them as if, so you know better than me that I was here before you, you know, that kind of stuff. So you want to listen, but you also want to widen your options beyond the counsel that they give you, because you know that they don't match the picture of what you would at least want to settle into, right? Yeah. Of course, you still want to be realistic because they see the realities, but you still want to really be cautious, because a lot of people are not having that caution. And so a lot of people are making decisions based on what the people around them are telling them to do. In fact, I had a conversation recently of someone who also moved like that. And the person was like, at some point, initially, one of the few people he started talking to when he moved, you know, were encouraging any job opportunities you see. And then at some point he said, you see all these opportunities, these are not the opportunities that I'm looking for, you know. And now started, so you need to get to a point where you're like, it's not matching the picture. It's not matching the picture. And that's why we always say, there's nothing like being clear on what you want. Because if you're just following the tide, everybody, we're leaving Nigeria, let's leave. No direction, no clear desire, nothing different. I mean, you can't have the full picture, but you should have it a little bit clear, and clear enough for you to be able to make the right decisions. I really love what you've shared with us today. So I'm so sure that anyone who has joined today would have laughed very well. hearing your stories, and of course, just realizing that, okay, I need to prepare, I need to look out for a support system. And I think those are really huge. And that emphasis tonight, I know, would have been very helpful. So before we let you leave, I still have two key things I want to hear from you today. So I know that you've been with the CEDA community for over a year. And I know that there was a program you were part of. And the reason why I'm dancing is that program is about to kick off in a few weeks, right? And that's the study of the science of getting rich. We just wanted you to share with us, just in a few minutes before we go off, what the experience was like for you.
It was a good experience. It was my friend who recommended. I can still remember when he sent me the text message. He told me, I've just done this course. This and that. You put everything there. I think at that point, I was in a space where I was looking at 40 years of my life. What have I done? This is what 40 years has brought me. In the next 40 years, I've got to change everything. I think we had the conversation. I can't, if I do the same thing, then the next 40 is going to be the same, but I want something more than this. I have to do something else. So those were the things that I was thinking about when he sent me that text. Before then, I wouldn't go for that. It wasn't just what I do. Mentoring, all this is where they were foreign to me. Mentoring, coach, I had another idea of what it was there. But because I was in a space where I was telling myself, if before now I used to veer left, if I want to be sincere to myself, I need to start trying to veer right, whether I like it or not. So when that came in, it was what I was thinking about. I just said, you know what? Normally I wouldn't do this. Let me just push myself to do it. Because then I used to tell myself that the most foolish or the most stupid lie that you can tell is to lie to yourself. The example I use, this is me talking to myself. It's like you are preparing for an exam. You do a practice question. You mark it for yourself. And you score, maybe you score the mark, you fail so much and you score 20 over 100. But because you just mark it correct for yourself and then you decide to score yourself 90 over 100. Who is lying to who? So I always try to be sincere to myself. So he sent me that text message. I got the call from you and then, we took off. But funny enough, I was so much interested in the course. I didn't even see the price and everything that he put beneath his text message. Because when you told me that there's a cost to it, I went back to look at that text message because I went to why did you tell me? But then it was there. I didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't see it because I was just consumed with my desire to do something different. So we kicked off, I met all the people there. And when you gave us that book, I think the preface, Wallace, the confidence with which he started, saying that if you do those things, he said his book is not for people who are trying stuff. This book is for people who have made up my mind that they want to get rich, And then he went on saying, if you do this thing, you will be rich. The confidence with which he was making those statements, it's shocking to me. Because the books I've read, they don't talk like that. I'm like, what does this guy know that's making him say this? He said, if you are trying to be philosophical, this book is not for you.
Yeah.
I'm just paraphrasing.
Yeah.
I got so intrigued that I wanted to read ahead, but obviously I didn't want to be ahead of the class, so I stayed. So the things that still stuck for me was when he said, opportunity is not monopolized. Because we used to use that phrase that if I had the opportunity, I would do this. So when he saw that, it just gave me a new perspective. That really, opportunity isn't monopolized; it's there for everybody. And I think there was a class where we talked about resources is not limited. Nothing is going to finish. There's nothing that's going to finish. It's just there.
Yeah.
So the understanding that opportunity is not monopolized and nothing's going to finish. It just frees you to get into it.
Yeah.
And there's a part where he talked about getting rich, not in the competitive space, but in the creative space. All those things, all those points were very, very big. And I think because it was a mastermind class, that was the first time I would hear that. It was a mastermind class where we come together and talk about those. If you remember, we used to enjoy that. We don't always want to stop.
Yes.
Always, I think Pastor T was always conscious that, guys, we have to end this. So
Yes.
I remember well. And from that small group we developed class rep, we developed assistant class rep. It was fun. And there's those things that I learned was mind shaping for me. And I think because of the stage I was, it helped me. And it just kind of like, set me free to come out. I found out that what I wasn't doing was I didn't come out. I didn't come out. Even when you told me about this program, I initially didn't want to come on it. I didn't want to come live, but obviously it's something I need to, change and do, and which I've embraced. After that course, I've gone in to meet people. I'm trying to come out of myself. So many things, that I'm learning. People are doing stuff. So I can't not do stuff, so
awesome.
It was a very big positive for me.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear this feedback from you. And, every single time I talk with people and we have this reference to even the name Wallace D. Waters. When I hear the word Wallace D. Waters, I just start remembering the feeling of being in that class. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and I was mentioning some things from the book. And as I said, Wallace D. Waters, I was like, oh my God, I can imagine myself back in the SOGR mastermind right now. Yeah. It's an amazing, amazing resource. I might be the one who's facilitating it and I'm talking like this, but the excitement that I feel delivering it to people, I'm so happy that you can, testify on that as well. And for anyone who's probably, listening to this for the first time, I'm wondering what exactly is Fisayo now talking about? I don't understand. What do you mean? What's going on? What are you referring to? It's the last season of our mastermind groups for the year, and we have it just once a year. We had it last year. Fisayo was one of our participants, and we're having it in a few weeks. It's the study of the science of getting rich. If you're someone who is looking at attracting, creating, multiplying, and keeping wealth properly, stewarding wealth properly, and you are also someone who is probably biased to do it God's way, you want to be in this mastermind group, because that's exactly what we're going to be covering. And I can tell you that every single person who has been part of this, just like Fisayo has testified and shared with us about his experience, always lives with a shift. Everybody lives with it. You cannot be the same. You start to see wealth creation differently. You start to position differently. And there are people who have actually had monetary, as in a year after, the monetary difference has been very, very impactful for them. So I can tell you that. And we're going to be having some videos from some participants as we go on. But if you're already like, FolaFayo, this thing's already sounding juicy, I want to know more about it, just drop SOGR in a DM for me, all right? And then we'll get back to you on the details, or on WhatsApp. If you know me directly on WhatsApp, just send me SOGR, DM on Instagram or on Facebook, and we'll get back to you. So Fisayo, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, who would have thought that we would spend 1 hour together tonight?
I know.
I'm sure you're surprised. Okay, so it's time for me to let you go. But I believe something. We mentioned something earlier, and I believe that this is what happens for a lot of us. Unconsciously, we might already have been doing some form of expression. Maybe we've just not formalized it. So we want to ask you, is there any recent projects that you're working on that, it's still it might even be in seed form, and you're just saying, guys, look out for this in a few years. I will have set it up in a few months. I will have set it up, that you want us to know about and you want us to probably plug into. If it's something that is an idea that we have considered, and we don't mind being a partner to let's just hear from you. Any project you're involved with, it could be your own personal initiative or something you're already partnering with, but something that is really being a blessing to people.
Oh yeah, when you just mentioned initiative, I think I have one that is close to my heart. It hasn't taken off, but it's going to take off. We're looking at December. Because it involves kids who are in school. So it's coming from my experience too, because having gone through this phase, this stage where I started to learn stuff, like coming to the SOGR, and so many things I started learning. And I felt that these are things that I should have learned or I should have known. Well, not I should have known, but I should have learned in the early days of my, life. Maybe like when I was in secondary school. I looked back, and I saw that I can't remember throughout my university days. I can't remember reading a book. Maybe if I read maybe one throughout from my 18 years to 30s, I don't think I read a book for FolaFayo all those years.
Wow.
I don't think, maybe if I can count maybe one or two books all throughout those years.
Wow.
There was so those times I think, what in the world was I doing?
You're going to school.
So that the year I think when I read Esther Gill, Science of Getting, I read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
As popular as that book was,
I
didn't read
it. Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
And it was Bookie that made me read The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah.
And I read those books and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? But then I moved on from there. But then I started looking at the kids around me. I have a group of friends, I started looking at the kids and I'm like, do these kids know all these things? And I thought to myself, it would be a disservice if I don't let them know. Yeah. I would not be happy if they grow up and they the same thing I went through that they're going to go through. So I thought, you know what? Why don't I bring them together and start to introduce them to these things? They don't learn everything in school.
Yeah.
School is not going to teach them a lot of things. So I just thought, let me do that. And then I spoke to the parents, and the parents they're like, yeah, that's fine. Let's do this. So we should have done that last month, but logistics, we're going to kick it off. So we're going to do it in December when they're on break. So my desire, my desire is that these few things that they're not going to learn in school, teach them. I'm like, one of the first things I'm contemplating is time. Letting them know that they have time as a resource that they need to use. They can't waste it. They can't while it away, that kind of stuff. So all the little bit of things I've thought about, I've written them down. As it comes to my mind, I write them down. I thought about time. I thought about association. I thought about their mind.
Yeah.
All those things that it's just small nuggets, just small things that they might not. I didn't know. I thought it would be wrong for them to find out themselves. If I know it, why didn't I show it to them? And then I'll get them into starting to read books.
Yeah.
They're not too young, 16, 12 years.
Yeah.
So that's the project that that's an initiative.
That's what
Yeah,
that sounds really, really good. And like I said to you, one of our recent chats, I connect so much with that because I was a product of a similar, ministry. It was a ministry actually. It was faith-based, but it was parachurch. It wasn't really tied to a church. I'm a product of one, and I can tell you that it brought balance to my work as a believer in my teen years, right? And we learned quite a lot of things. And one of the words, when you were mentioning association time, I remember now one of the key themes that we learned then was rejection. So as a teenager, I understood rejection of self, rejection by others, and the fear of rejection. All those things we learned them because there was a book. And the interesting thing about the book was the title of the book. The title of the book was, I'm not even sure if it's still in print. If it's still in print, even me, I would want to get a copy today. Because I read that book, then I got my copy as a teenager, right? And the title of the book is Excuse Me, Your Rejection is Showing. That was the title of the book. So you can imagine having that kind of book, digging into it as a teenager. So I completely understand what you're talking about. And all I can say is that on the Cedar community, there would definitely be a lot of people who would have, resources, experience, maybe even material, and maybe even funding that they will not mind giving to such a thing. So whenever you have it out, maybe it's your website, maybe it's anything link, please share it on Cedar. We'll be more than glad we want to connect, because I can tell you that, no, truly, it's something that is like shaping the people who are coming after us, and there's nothing as fulfilling as doing that. So let me applaud you already for even catching that idea and trying to implement it, and I'm wishing you all the best with whatever you guys set up to do in December. Thank you so much for this time with us. You've been so incredible, and I'm sure you've surprised yourself. I'm sure you thank you for expressing the advancing man here tonight. I'm sure all the people in the cohort last year will probably say, yes, Fisayo showed up in a certain way. He showed up in a certain way. So thank you so much. And as you leave, let's just give us a final word just before you leave us today. Just something short, because I'm looking at the time. Just something short before you leave, so that we can just say, oh, Fisayo left us with this as you leave tonight.
I think what I'm thinking about is I believe that everything around us, everything that we aim for, ties to what we know and what we do. It ties to what you know, and it ties to what you do. So if you look at everything you have done, everything that you're going to do, is going to be tied to what you know and what you do. So we should put effort in knowing, and then we should put effort in doing. So if we have those two in space, we will be somewhere. We will achieve what we want to achieve.
Fantastic word. Fantastic word. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for being open, sharing your stories, and leaving these incredible gems with us today. All the very best with the initiative coming up in December with the kids. And for those who are just watching, if you want to connect with Fisayo, I'm not sure what platforms is active on, but I'm sure we will get it from him after this and share it on the Facebook group. But if anyone also wants to reach him directly, well, you can also come through me. Come through me till we get a link to maybe one of his social media platforms or handles, and then we would share. Just in case you want to ask him more questions about some of the things he said today. Thank you everyone for joining. Ayo Shewa, I saw that you joined. Eniton Shewa, thank you. Kike Mbada, True Blood, Pastor T, thank you so much. And for every other person who watched and who didn't leave us an emoji, because I don't know that you are there tonight, but if you're watching the replay, give us #replay. And thank you again, Fisayo, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Weekend ahead, and God bless. Thank you.
And you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.